Hello everyone. Thank you for coming and for attending this Digital Humanities Hangout session. Today, Alba will present us her work. Alba has a great passion for studying cultural manifestations and analyzing historical processes, especially those related to human identity and memory from a gender perspective, as well as the application of new technologies. Her academic background spans from history and musicology with a strong orientation towards the digital humanities. She's graduated in history from the University of Murcia, specializing in prehistory. Subsequently, she pursued a master's degree in applied archaeology and completed a PhD thesis on the Iberian archaeological site La Luz. Concerning her musical education, she holds a degree in mandolin from the Conservatory of Murcia and completed a master's in historical musicology at the University of La Rioja. I don't know, I said it right. Sorry. During her academic journey, she collaborated on various international and interdisciplinary research projects, engaging in activities related to documentation, material analysis, and text editing, among others. Additionally, she has intermediate level of proficiency in programming languages R, Python, XML, TAI, as well as experience in using text edition software, graphic design tools, GIS, music editing tools, database management, and project management and teamwork. She also considers that currently technology is presented in all domains, emphasizing hybrid profiles as the situation. We are in favors, exchanges, and connections with diverse realities. Thank you very much, Alba, for being able to be here and present us your interesting work. You can have the stage.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you very much to Catherine and Joanna for this opportunity. Are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So today I'm going to share with you the methodological approach of the Rewind project. This project used travel literature to study the European cultural heritage, applying an interdisciplinary methodology focused on digital humanities and gender decolonial approach. Working on European cultural heritage is complex because it is a multifocal sociocultural construction. However, the power relationship tends to the selective preservation of historical memory and the support of a particular reading history. But there is no unique historical narrative since cultural heritage is polysemic and is perceived differently depending on religions, gender, status, or ethnicity. Likewise, certain monuments, buildings, or books are redefined over time and acquire new connotation as the Black Lives Matter phenomenon has shown. In the framework of the colonial feminists, an illustrative example is a performatic act of dressing the statue of Isabella I of Castile in La Paz, in Bolivia, as Cholita on the 12th of October 2020 by the Mujeres Creando Collective. European society is multicultural, so the Rewind project aims to give voice to non-European women as cultural agents in historical narratives to break the Eurocentric, patriarchal, and androcentric canon at the beginning of the 20th century about cultural heritage. So we also want to determine the relationship between European cultural heritage and otherness processes. In this sense, we observe that these writers created an identity in the movement and connected different cultures. And finally, We are interested to consider how societies use the past to build meanings in the present. But what texts comprise the corpus of the Rewind projects? They are travel stories published in book formats and written by Latin American women who visited Europe before the Second World War. They sought a feminist commitment and the vindication of miscegenation. They are Clorinda Mato, Isabel Carrasquilla, Inés Echeverría, María Enriqueta Camarillo, and Zoila Aurora Cáceres. As I said, the Rewind project applied an interdisciplinary methodology based on digital humanities and the gender decolonial approach. It combines computational linguistic and geographic information system techniques with an ontological model and emotional analysis algorithms to observe the relationship between European cultural heritage and processes of alterity. Our workflow is developed in the open science framework, so we follow the FAIR principles and use open source software to encourage reproducibility. In addition, to promote interoperability, we use linked open data and international standards, and we share our information through the project repository on Senate. Let's see how we prepare the data now. Our dataset corresponds to the deep data approach and not big data. The first step in our research is to transform the paper travel book into digital documents in XML format. Since the books are in PDF format, it is necessary to use optical character recognition techniques to obtain a computer-readable plain text file. Travel literature books offer numerous interconnected references to persons, places, institutions, events, dates, so we need to encode this information to process it. We choose XML-marked language as the encoding standard proposed by the Text Encoding Initiative, as they allow us to have a structured and standardized information, facilitating the interoperability and reuse of our data. In addition, we adapted the text to the new spelling rules of the Real Academia Española because we will later use the text for sentiment analysis, although we keep both spelling. To maintain consistency in the project, we use the Russia vocabulary to create the categories that define cultural heritage in the XML labeling and in the ontology. We also incorporate linked open data from BIAC, GeoNames, and Wikidata to identify people, places, and cultural objects. In addition, using linked open data is a strategy for disambiguation. In this example from Carrasquilla's book, we can see that she mentioned Catalina de Medici as person. We also have a reference of a place, the Louvre Museum. We can read here some cultural items like La Venus de Milo, the Victory of Samothrace, and also La Gioconda. We have also an historical event, the San Bartholomew's Night. So after encoding the text in a computer-readable format, we interrogate the book using Xquery to extract information related to elements of European cultural heritage. And in this example from Mate's book, we recover all the elements of the Louvre Museum that Mato mentioned in Viaje de Recreo, such as La Venus de Milo. We organize this data in a knowledge graph created with Protege. We use the CDOC-CRM model and some properties from the European digital model as a reference. Some subclasses are based on the Ajustío vocabulary, and to create the instance, we also use link open data from Wikidata, VIAP, and DNAmes. So there is a correlation between the text in XML format and the ontology. When we model cultural heritage data extracted from the travel book, we focus in the event entity since we are interested in what is observed, when, where, and by whom. In this way, the real-world instance, such as phononyms or patronymics, that we were mapped during the XML encoding process based on a close reading, provide us with information about the relationship of an event with a place and its chronology and the agents involved in this event, etc. These relationships are challenging to detect by a human observation, but digital approach allows us to quantify and detect patterns. In this example, you can see that the Venus de Milo is mentioned in the book written by Carrasquilla, that is a sculpture that is in Paris in the Louvre Museum. We have the chronology, the author, and a lot of relationships. I only choose some of them to show how the graph of knowledge works. So travel literature, we are going to see now how we can use this data to analyze the information using geographical, temporal, and sentiment analysis. Because travel literature is a palimpsest in which different levels of information overlap. On the one hand, we have a geographical journey that offers us information about the location of cultural heritage elements, the urban planning cities, and the itineraries of the authors in different European countries. In this way, we can reconstruct, for example, Matto's route in Italy in August 1908. We know she visits Pisa, Siena, Perugia, Viterbo, Rome, among other sites. If we deepen our analysis, we can geolocate the monuments, buildings, archaeological sites, etc., that Matto mentioned. She visited the Forum area in Rome on the 16th of August in 1908. So in the map, we can see the Arco de Tito, the Tempio dei Dioscuri, and the Basilica Julia, among other archaeological sites. However, heritage elements can change location. The causes of these changes are diverse and they range from political uses to reorganization of urban planning to social demands. Let's see the case of Victory Boulevard in Berlin. In 1895, Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany ordered the Order and Finance project to monumentalize the Victory Avenue in the Tiergarten Park, which resulted in the construction of 32 statues representing Prussian royal figures and political personalities. It was a very controversial project, and its contemporaries call it Avenue of Toys or Avenue of Marionettes. Cáceres saw this when she visited Berlin at the beginning of the 20th century. However, the boulevard was modified in 1938 due to Hitler government plans to remodel Berlin designed by Albert Speer. The statues were moved to another location in the Tiergarten Park. After the Second War, many of the statues were destroyed. The British occupying force dismantled the avenue because it was considered a symbol of Imperial Germany, and the museum creator Sinex Schaefer prevented the statues from being transferred to a rubbish dump and buried them near the Bellevue Castle. In 1978, when they were rediscovered as part of the Save the Monument campaign, some of the sculptures were transferred to the Lapidary Museum, and some are now part of the permanent exhibition Unbelievable Berlin and its monuments. That's why today it's impossible to see any of the monuments Cáceres mentioned in Cortes in the Tiergarten Park. In the slide, we can see some statues in the Stadthaus Citadel and the original path where they were. On the other hand, through travel law, we can travel back in time. Travel literature provides us a double temporal dimension. I mean, chronological information on cultural heritage, especially historical periods, and the situation of heritage elements at the time author wrote about them. Data about deterioration, modification, restoration, etc. Echevarria traveled to Europe in 1900, and this is our timestamp. In this example, Echevarria explained that the Alcázar of Toledo has suffered several fires. The authors report on a restoration financed by Cardinal Lorenzana in the 18th century when it was converted into an almshouse. And she also mentioned a fire in 1810 because of the war with France, and another fire on the 10th of January in 1887. So we can compare this information with other historical sources. In this other example, Echevarria mentioned how time affects the effects of the Alhambra Hammam and the effects of restoration. In this way, we can analyze how subsequent intervention of heritage elements affect their reception. Finally, we can talk about an inner journey in terms of emotional reaction, sensory impression, memories, and anecdotes. The connection between travel and heritage reception associated with emotional experience has even been categorized as psychosomatic reaction reflected in Stendhal, Jerusalem, or Finken-Judy syndromes. Furthermore, there is a correlation between cultural heritage and its emotional potential because most of works of art are designed to provoke an aesthetic response. In literary texts, emotion are an expressive resource that seeks a reaction from the reader. So when studying travel texts, it is essential to mark a distance between the affective part that can be associated with the narrative discourse and the sensation aroused by the reader. In the Rewind project, sentiment analysis is applied to describe to the description of cultural heritage elements to support an understanding of their reception. However, sentiment analysis is very complex because the expression of emotion is embedded in historical context. So it is essential to consider the psychological, theory, and emotional codes of the time and the sociocultural environment of the authors. In addition, because most of the implementation of sentiment analysis is for the English language, working with documentation in Spanish is a challenge, and it is necessary to adapt methodologies, techniques, and workflows. So we use the adaptation to Spanish of the TV text or library created by Siete Partidas Digital project, led by Professor Parejas from Universidad de Valladolid. Let's determine now which of the 8 basic emotions proposed by Plutchik are more present in Camarillo texts about Belfry of Fluids. We use the NRC Sentiment Lexicon created by Saeed Mohammed. This dictionary contains more than 40,000 manually annotated unigrams with positive and negative sentiment balance and emotion of anger, anticipation, disgust, fear, joy, sadness, surprise, and confidence. We can see that the emotion of fear and sadness dominate the text. But what words are associated with each emotion? In this word club, we can see that sad, gray, and dark are related to disgust, while love, glory, beauty are linked to joy. This part of the project is still in a work in progress and requires much caution. Well, this is a panoramic view of the methodology. So in this way, we offer an analysis of travel log by integrating different dimensions of the author experience to study the construction of historical discourses about European cultural heritage in the 20th century. This methodology allows us to organize information and obtain new knowledge about European cultural heritage to answer questions: what heritage elements are selected, what power relation do they perpetuate, what version of memory do they legitimize. Well, we are in a digital humanities context. I want to underline it is impossible to develop the Rewind project without a digital humanities methodology. And still, although we rely on technology, the interpretation of the results depends on critical analysis by humans. So, evaluating different historical discourses makes it possible to approach a polyphonic expression of the reception of heritage, because it is not a question of adding women's testimonies or creating a list of cultural productions created by them, but of trying to construct a plural history. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alba. It was really, really interesting.
Thank you.
So we can start now with the questions. I've seen you have some claps here. Someone
Thank you.
clapping your presentation.
Thank you.
So we can move to the questions. Does anyone have a question? I found it really interesting because you developed a methodology that, of course, can be applied to study, to any literary studies in any kind of anything that is written so far. It can be a manuscript, or it can even be a literary work. So it can be applied to Portuguese, to Spanish, to English, yes. and it actually evolves lots of digital humanities skills, because we're not only talking about the tool, or it's just a mix of tools that are combined. So I don't know if you can want to talk a little bit about the workflow of the process.
Yeah, we use open source software, as I said. I encode in directly using Visual Studio Code because I need to, the test has a special characteristic for the digital edition, because there are some tools, for example, Pelagios, that works very similar. And they also, this tool also allowed to geolocate and link with the cassette of your names. That is very similar what I do. But in my case, I need to use the geographical data for other geographical analysis. The recognitive tools no offer me this option. So this is the reason finally I decided. Also because I need to annotate the different spelling in Spain. So to process the information later. So record digital is not possible to do that.
Okay, thank you. We have a question and a statement. So maybe we'll start with the statement because Christopher is leaving. So he says, thank you for your presentation. I need to leave to head to another meeting now, but I enjoyed learning about your research. And now we can move to Derek's question. Do any of the writers talk about their personal physical experience, for example, reactions to unfamiliar food, weather, etc., or do they keep such things apart from their objective descriptions of the locations of their cultural, intellectual reactions to what they see or experience?
Okay. Yeah. In the presentation, I only saw the things I interested on to my project, that is the description of the monuments. But these women are cultural agents, and they did a lot of comparison between the countries they visit and the original country, and they talk about the food, and they talk about the weather, and they talk also about the costumes and the all these things that are different for them. And this is very interesting also to me to understand the alterity process, why they means when they visited a museum and saw an object, they remember another object in their country and talk about this object, for example. And when they taste the food, they also remember the taste of a similar drink or food in their country. So this is very interesting, and we also take note about this information.
Even if it's something that is unfamiliar or that's something that they don't like to experience, they also state it.
Yes, because this is very interesting. It is very interesting using the travel literature as a historical source for this, because they offer very personal information that is difficult to find in an official document, for example.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're having direct access to their experiences in their life course and everything that they see at their time, and that they are telling you about what happened. Okay, exactly. So Catherine says, thank you so much for the presentation. It is such an interesting project. The question is, how did you select these particular travel narratives? Were there particular criteria you were searching for?
Yes, the most challenging part of the project was to select the sources, because we don't have a lot of time. We only have two years to develop the methodology and apply it. And we need the corpus are homogeneous. I want to say that all the writers are Latin American. They are in the same sociocultural position, because we need to compare similar information. They are women very commitment with the feminist movement because we are very interested in this gender decolonial approach. And they traveled around Europe before the Second World War. And they are commitment also with the indigenous and the missionation processes. They visit the similar countries. This is very important because then when in the last step in the project is to compare the perspective through the ontology. Or visit France, or visit Spain, or then visit all these countries because we want to know when they visit Madrid what cultural elements they refers in the book and why. Why all them visit the Prado Museum and not visit the other museum that is very close of the Prado? What monument? Marto, for example, refers to a statue of Colón in Barcelona, but is the only that mentioned this statue. But all the travels arrived to Barcelona in boats and arrived through the sea, and they saw this monument that is now in the same place. So we are very interested in analyze why they choose these elements and how they describe the reaction when they experiment with them.
I have a question. I don't know if it is within the scope, but is there any literature, travel literature written by men that you can compare to the ones written by women, and how different monuments impacted on their analysis and on their sentiment analysis?
Well, I used to compare the authorized discourse of history at the moment, the travel guides. Why? Because the Black Soul and the, I don't remember the numbers now, but I used three travel guides, and also the official discourses of the historian at the moment to compare, but I don't use masculine travel books to compare because I'm interested to know what is the official discourse about this monument, about this, and I can found this in historic book and in the travel guides and compare with the perception of this woman.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, because they select some things that doesn't appear in the,
Sure.
and it's very interesting to know other writers, other painters, other because when they visit Europe, they contact with other women's, and these women's appear in the books, and they talk about the book of my friend, blah blah blah. Oh, we go to the museum where our friend blah 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 expose a painter. So it's very interesting to know other creation of women through these books.
Yeah. Thank you. So Catherine was saying that was also going to be her next question about travel literature by men. And I don't know if anyone has more questions. So Derek asks, were the writers conscious of themselves as non-European as part of mestiçage?
Yes. This is the reason I choose this author, because they are commitment with the mestizaje. For example, Clorinda Mato defends the right of the indigenous. They are very conscious of the sentiment of alterity, but they are European education, because when they visit Europe, they know a lot about the history of Europe. they read a lot of European authors. So it's a particular vision of the history and culture of Europe because they know the culture very well.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. And may that influence the way that they see the different parts that they are writing about, analyzing? Do you think that that education influences them?
Yeah, I can show some influence in because, for example, there is a relation between Soy la Aurora Cáceres and Mato because they share friends and they share a cultural environment, and we can see some influence each other because they mention each other. For example, how do you say? Rubén Darío wrote the prologue of the travel book of Soy la Aurora Cáceres, and he said that she described Europe very well, but it's better when she compare with the original country of them. So yeah, it's very curious, this relation.
Yeah. Catherine says it will be very interesting to have a sentiment analysis around the author's perceptions of Europe because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, but sentiment analysis is very, very complex. I have a lot of problems with this because the paragraph that describe a monument, the impression, are very small, and to process this with some because it's very difficult. I can read a text and I have an impression, and Joanna can read a text and have another impression. You have to try to discern of the emotion that the text provoked you and the real intention of the author. And this is a book, it's a narrative discourse with an intention. So it's very complex because in a letter, maybe it's a personal, it's different, but it's a published book.
And you talked about an intention. Which was the intention of the authors?
I'm not really sure about this. This is one of the questions of the project because they write for an audience.
Okay.
They visit Europe and then return to America and they publish the books in America, except Echevarria Amato. She published also in Spain. They have a feminist audience.
Okay.
So they encourage other women to travel and also share their knowledge with the community. So I'm not very sure what is the real intention of the.
Yeah, but at least there is kind of a gender interest because
yes, because they want to fight against the reclusion of the woman in the house. So this is something that all the writers that I study share, and this is why I choose them. So
it's very interesting. I don't know if there are any more questions. Catherine says, I can only imagine the challenges with the sentiment analysis. I think the work you're doing will be great to help move the methods forward. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. On a slide where you mentioned the FAIR principles, you have mentioned the Rossio infrastructure. So will your data be integrated within the infrastructure Rossio, or you're using their thesaurus? I don't know. For others, the Rossio infrastructure is like an European at a Portuguese level, so it gathers resources from academic and cultural institutions in Portugal. So in this matter, I was wondering if it will aggregate your data, for example.
I use the Russian infrastructure, especially the thesaurus, to define the categories of the cultural heritage that I analyze. For example, I define all the buildings using the Russia thesaurus. I define the objects using the Russia thesaurus. But I also use the link of the Europeana because connect with different galleries, museums, libraries to connect the digital object with the real object. So it's very interesting. It's very slow process, but it's very interesting to use link up in for the web semantic web. It's very interesting. Yeah.
So Derek asks if are the texts larger enough for corpus linguistics analysis? For example, maybe more than 1 million words total, and he's thinking of things like collocation analysis that needs size to acquire statistical significance.
Yeah. Yes, I don't remember the name of the number of words, but is 1 million words. Yes, it's very important to use collocation, bigrammas to try to see for example, the negative words in Spain in Spanish. You can use to say something completely different with a word that has a positive balance. For example, I can say um, I don't think the film is very good. In this case, good is something positive, but I think I said I don't think. So this is a negative value of the sentences. So this is something very challenging with the Spanish. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same for us in Portuguese.
Yeah.
So Catherine asks, have you dealt at all with care principles to extend on FAIR? Just thinking because of the association with Indigenous people, it might be interesting to engage with.
Oh, no, I don't, but I take note to integrate if I can. Please. Thank you very much, Catherine.
More questions from the audience? Catherine says it might not be directly relevant, but interesting to know about, and she sends a useful resource.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Derek says, thanks for a really interesting presentation, bearing with my questions.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much.
Does anyone have any more questions? Something else that you'd like to ask Alba?
If they have some question and then want to send an email,
yeah,
sure. Thank you very much, Catherine.
I believe maybe we can close this really interesting session. It was great to hear about your work, Alba. It's really interesting. I liked it a lot, and I think the audience too, because we had lots of interesting questions in here. So thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for you.
Thank you all for coming.
You're right.